Hello, and welcome to another filmmaker interview of the Black Excellence Showcase, sponsored by RespectAbility and the NAACP. My name is Corey Evans, and I'm an apprentice with RespectAbility, and I'm very glad to be here today because I'm actually here with another person that I went through the apprenticeship with, Laquana Lightfoot, who is here. And like to introduce myself first to the audience out there. I'm a Black male sitting in front of a RespectAbility background with a lot of little logos on top of it. I'm wearing a light blue polo shirt, have a bald faded haircut. And like I said, I'm here today with a fellow apprentice, Laquana, actually writer and producer, Laquana Lightfoot, and I'll let you introduce yourself. Hey, and welcome, Laquana.
Thanks for having me. My name is Laquana Lightfoot. I'm currently wearing a green and white cardigan with a white shirt. It has words on it, but you can't currently see it. I have on a brown and black, like a cheetah print headband with a high bun, right? High curly bun. I also have on glasses. And like Corey said, I am a writer-producer. Yeah, I'll get into my film once the questions are asked.
Awesome.
And thanks for having me.
Awesome. Very glad to have you. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to ask, because we saw you a writer producer, what kind of scripts do you enjoy writing?
So when I first started writing, I was writing feature scripts. And then I moved into TV. So right now I'm focusing on writing TV pilots, but I still write feature scripts here and there. But I mostly write TV right now. And the genres that I write, it consists mainly of drama, some suspense/thriller, it depends on what your definition of thriller would be, and some crime.
Okay, cool, awesome. And like I said, on the film that you had, Say Her Name, you were writer and producer. So I was just curious, how's the process of being so tied to a film, so close to it, being writer and producer, and then you had to turn that over to a director? How was that process?
So I never wanted to direct. That's something I never wanted to go down the route of. So I knew when I wrote it that I was going to look for a director. So when I handed it over to her, we talked about it, we discussed it. She really liked the topic that I had because during the time period that I wrote it, it was it was a lot of protesting going on. So she was very enthusiastic about being able to direct it. When it came to us putting our visions together, because I was able, since she was director, she had to give some of her opinions about what she think would work and what wouldn't work. I also asked her opinion about the script because I hired her during the pre-production stage, because sometimes you can hire directors during production. I decided to hire her during pre-production because I wanted her opinion on the script. I wanted to make sure the script was up to par. It fit well enough that she would be able to come up with a vision and we could put both of our brains together to come up with like a masterpiece. Especially because it being my first film that I was actually putting together. And she had experience directing many things before.
Awesome, cool. And I wanted to talk, because you were saying a lot of protesting was going on at the time, and I wanted to talk about that. I wanted you to talk about that a little bit, like, the Breonna Taylor killing in particular, and how that, influenced the idea of the film. And
so that I'm trying to think to how to word it, but I actually like right before the protesting started, so I'll backtrack a little bit more. I was going to actually put out another film instead of Say Her Name. And when, things came into play, like COVID took a lot of me not being able to put that out, because that script had so many indoor scenes. It was just like with COVID, it was like impossible to be able to film it right now. So when I decided to write something else, because I really wanted to get something made, and that's when I put together Say Her Name. And that was actually before the Breonna Taylor incident. Ironically, I wrote that before the
Oh,
Breonna Taylor incident, actually. And it was just crazy how it ended up happening. And that was another reason why I pushed myself to get this film made, because I thought that it needed to be made, because it was just crazy how that happened right after. But it definitely influenced me a lot, because the Breonna Taylor incident was not the first time that something like this happened. And what pushed me to also want it to be a Black woman that this is happening to is because I saw a lot of protests going on for George Floyd and, Eric Gardner and stuff like that. And, there's a lot of media about the Black males that have police brutality happen to them, but we don't really talk about much about the police brutality that happens to women. Breonna Taylor wasn't the first woman that this happened to. She was the first woman that actually got coverage, but she was not the first woman this happened to. And if we had media coverage about this happening to the other Black women that this happened to, it would be out there more. And that's what drove me to write this. And another thing that drove me to write it was police officers not having the right training, I should say, the right training to be able to handle people that have disabilities. And that was something that really bothered me tremendously. So I wanted to just get that out. As a writer, when you have something inside of you that's speaking, you have to get it out on paper and put it out there. So that was just how I was feeling. I had to get it out.
right, right. Yeah, your film on like touched so many different things right at the right time. Timing was just everything. Was everything. So I had a couple more questions I wanted to ask you because you mentioned COVID briefly and how it affected and kind of you pivoted to this film. But was there any challenges? Was there any issues with COVID with this film at all? Like any issues that you had or any challenges?
Um, Most of the scenes were outdoor. Um, so that didn't affect us as much as and pertains to filming. We did have a couple of indoor scenes, but thankfully we were able to use a house of one of the crew members. COVID did come into play with that though, because the person, she's one of my closest friends right now, actually. When we used her house, she did have elderly people that live there, and we had to wear a mask the entire time, make sure we got tested, so that we weren't putting them at risk. And when we were filming, I informed everyone, including crew and cast, to social distance. If you are in school, go to school, and do not be going out to bars, to clubs, to restaurants, because we do not want to risk anyone getting sick on set. I let them know 2 weeks prior to filming, and they all listened. We all did temperature checks when we were on set. Before we started filming, we did temperature checks. But in terms of COVID ruining the production part, no. But it did ruin some of the pre-production, because we had to wait a little bit for New York State to open back up filming because it had shut down here. So we had to wait for that to open back up in order to actually film. So we had to change around the filming dates quite a bit, actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. But one of the last questions I had for you is, there any current or future projects that you're working on now that you'd like to tell us about?
I don't have anything in development right now. Right now I'm just working on, I have a TV pilot that is done, but my goal for this year is to write at least one more feature, because I have a feature, but I want to write another one because it seemed like I've dived out of writing those. And I want to write another TV pilot that I have an idea for. Right now it's just in the outline stage. I haven't started writing it yet, but I definitely have the idea down. And it's definitely something different, I can say, that we haven't seen on TV before, which is needed.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing that when that gets out. And I really want to thank you for joining us today. Really
No
appreciate it.
problem. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Laquana. And like to say thank you for joining us today for another filmmaker interview episode of the Black Excellence Showcase. And you guys have an excellent day. Thank you.